You're watching Success Insiders, hosted by Rebecca.
and Liv.
And today's guest is Doug Montero. Could you
Hello.
please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Doug Montero. I am 32 years old. I have a landscape business with my family, and I'm also an artist.
Okay, so we also know that you immigrated from another country. Is that
Yep,
right?
that is correct.
Can you tell us more about your experience?
Yeah, so I moved here from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
I was 7 years old when we moved here. My family had a friend here, and they gave us a home when we arrived, and then we've been here ever since,
Mm-hmm.
being part of the American dream.
Do you think that impacted your work in any way?
I think that right now, my culture is not necessarily shown. My
Okay.
like where I grew,
Yeah.
where I came from, and things like that within my work. But I think that my culture has definitely influenced my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I can work really hard, and
Mm-hmm.
I can work consistently, and I'm not scared to show up and get it done.
Yeah. Do you think in the future your culture will be more shown through your art as well?
Yeah, I think that, the goal of artists is to see the world and reflect
Mm-hmm.
upon themselves and be able to make people, potentially see different things or have a different perspective on maybe, something that's happening in
Mm-hmm.
politics or something that's happening in your life. I think that there's a place for art to really be personal. And I think that, for an artist, it's hard,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the end goal is to share your experiences with
Yeah.
everyone else,
Yeah.
And
connect.
and you talked about perspective changes and how that affects your art. What was one of those perspective changing moments you had with your art or just yourself?
Um, yeah, so a huge perspective shift was around COVID. That's when I started to focus on art.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Mass Art for graphic design. When I was a junior in graphic design at Mass Art, my dad and I decided to start a landscape business.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it was a landscape maintenance. So we were cutting grass and doing mulch, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
taking care of the home, making sure that it was pretty. Um, and I quickly needed something that was a little bit more challenging,
Yeah.
and also wanted to, push myself and work on bigger, better, cooler projects.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got into the construction. And I was doing that for probably about, I don't know, 7, 8 years at the time. And COVID happened, and everybody got a lot of downtime, and everybody was
Mm-hmm.
kind of by themselves a lot. Um, and when that happened, I started doing a lot of, like, you know, just time by myself. Some meditation, some, like, I just go into the woods and I'd kind of, walk around for a couple hours. And I was really kind of reflecting on my life and what I have done and where I have been and where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was very happy and grateful for being able to help my family and establish a foundation for myself. But I also felt like I have something a little bit bigger to share with the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure what it is yet. But that's kind of what I'm working for. So that's when the shift happened. About 4 or 5 years ago. I kind of just focused fully on art.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my day job. I still work 9 to 5, but every other chance I get, I'm down here and I'm creating something.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first job, and how do you think that impacts how you work today?
My first job, my mom always did nails,
Mm-hmm.
manicure at the house. And there was constantly women in and out of the house getting their nails done. Like, sometimes she'd be up at 7 a.m. and,
Wow.
she wouldn't be done till 10, 11, 11:30 at night. And, I was 7 when I got here, and my brother was born right when we got here.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother's
Oh,
7 years younger than I am. And I think that like any kid, like you kind of want a little bit of attention.
Mhm.
Um, and I started making Dragon Ball Z cartoons
Oh.
on like 8.5 by printer papers, and I would make it outlined so that I could scan them and
Mhm.
sell them
Mhm.
to my mom's clients so that their kids could color in the pages because their kids were about my age and everybody loved Dragon Ball Z and anime and all the cartoons and stuff that were going on at the time. So that was kind of like my first unofficial job.
Unofficial
Um,
job. Do you
yeah.
think your mother's ethics kind of like brushed off on you?
It's so funny because I would immediately say that my dad's work ethic is the
Oh,
one that influenced
Wow.
on me. But looking back, it really was my mom
mhm,
because, in addition to, it was also my mom
mhm,
because she was just working all the time, nonstop. She was pregnant, she was working till like she was ready to give birth, and right after that, she was working again. So, being immigrants, like that's what we have to do. You get up and you go to work and you're trying to figure out a better, easier, different life for your family.
mhm,
So they both definitely had huge influences. I mean, I remember my dad, he would landscape all day.
uh-huh,
He'd go to work, he'd leave the house by 6. He'd be at work all day. He'd come home at 3:30, and then maybe a half hour later he was gone. He went to work at a restaurant and he was a line chef, a
uh-huh,
line cook at John Harvard's restaurant over in Framingham, just a local brewery place a few years ago. And then he wouldn't be home till 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30 to
Wow.
like whatever time, depending the day of the week it was. So both my parents really influenced me to work hard.
Would
yeah,
you say your interest in art started when you were at that age, like 7, and just
Yeah, I would say definitely, if not even earlier. My mom is gifted too. Like she has the, artistic talents and abilities. And I remember she would, take these like biblical images of like, baby Jesus and stuff. And then she would like replicate it and kind of like probably what inspired me to start the whole Dragon Ball
mhm,
Z drawing phase that
yeah,
I had, because like just seeing her take that and like replicate it and it just looked so awesome. Um, so
yeah,
I would definitely say I've dabbled my whole life doing something
artistic.
artistic here
mhm.
and
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So, would you consider them the artists that you look up to? Are there like other artists that you think really shifted your opinions and ideas?
Yeah. They influence me in a lot of ways. I don't know if they're the artists I look up to, but they're definitely the people I look up to.
Mhm.
Mhm,
They're the kindest people I know. They will give you the shirt off their back and help you with anything and kind of always be there for you.
mhm,
A huge artist that kind of influenced me, Damien Hirst. Um, in college, kind of learning about different artists and seeing the cow that he dissected and
wow,
put into formaldehyde, and you could like walk around it. And I didn't see it personally, but studying it,
uh-huh,
and then just also like his impact in the art world. Like he
mhm,
came in and immediately like made noise. Everybody kind of
yeah,
knew who he was, and he really made a name for himself. So he would um, definitely be one of the artists I look up to.
mhm,
And then also Jackson Pollock too. I like his dribbles and scribbles and
Yeah.
drip paintings and
mhm,
things like that. He definitely has influenced a little bit of some later work of mine. And Chuck
mhm,
Close too did a lot of portraits that were colorful and kind of odd.
Yeah. You've always been like sort of artsy person because you said that you did graphic design when you went to mass art and stuff.
Yeah,
But when did you know that like I want to do that? I want to sell my art. I want to like pursue my art.
yeah. So many years ago, I had to give my girlfriend at the time, my wife, a Christmas gift,
Mhm.
and I hadn't gotten her anything. I'm a little bit of a procrastinator sometimes,
Yeah.
and it was coming to Christmas, and I, didn't know what to do. So I told her, I was like, listen, I started this painting for you, but I'm going to need a little bit more time to
mhm,
finish it. And of course, I hadn't started it yet, but that bought me some more time. And I made this painting of her cat in this like weird position, kind of like rolled around in
uh-huh,
her back. And, a couple years later, I was, not right before COVID happened. I was in a little bit of a funk, like unsure about like where I'm going, where I'm headed. And I was like, let me kind of do that again.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I made another painting of another cat of mine. And I was making that painting. I had this canvas next to me, and it was gridded out,
Mhm.
and there was this audio going around on TikTok at the
Mhm.
time. So it was right around 2020. So when TikTok was
Uh-huh.
starting, and it said, if you don't know what to do, just pick something up
Uh-huh.
and do it.
Mhm.
So I took a paint tube and I just started dabbing right where the lines crossed,
Mhm.
and I created this kind of like gridded, abstract, textured
Uh-huh.
painting thing. It looked like pixels, kind of. It was just like very, gridded, formatted, and formal or whatever. But then, a friend of mine reached out to me the next day, and he was
Mhm.
like, "Hey, did you see what happened to your TikTok account?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "You have 7,000 followers," and I was like,
Wow.
"Whoa!" And immediately I knew like there's something here with this painting style, and I have to kind of figure it out
Mhm.
because people don't just go viral overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't always happen that way, and when it does, I think it's important that there's something there, and you should you know
Pursue
figure
it.
it out, pursue it a little bit more. Yeah. And then after that, I've just been kind of doing the dots and the videos, and making some satisfying,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
paintings.
I was just wondering, did your wife, well, your soon to be, well,
She's
your
wife
wife,
now,
yeah,
yeah.
wife now, did she like your art
She
that you
hates
made?
it.
Oh.
Yeah, she doesn't like anything I do, um, which is funny because it's like I respect that.
Uh-huh.
I think that if she was just like, "Oh my God, I love this," I would kind of lose interest a little
Yeah.
bit. I think that she holds me accountable to what I say I'm going to do,
Mhm.
and kind of pushes me. And she does not like. I've created maybe two or three things that she's liked that she would be willing to like hang in the house, and it's always a constant battle.
And
It's
Mhm.
those
just
are
funny.
upstairs.
Yeah, those are upstairs. They're not down here.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. Did she like the one that like you gave her specifically that?
The cat one
Yeah,
where
the
it's
cat
like
one.
So she
laying on her
loves
back.
those, yeah, because she's
Okay.
obsessed with her animals. She
Okay.
loves her animals like 10 times more than she loves me.
Oh.
She'll jump in front of a car any day to save one of her animals, and she'll
Mhm.
push me in front of a car any day. So,
Oh. Okay.
Um, I have a question. So, why do you think your art was so successful and was able to get such a reach with such a large audience? Because
yeah.
7,000 one night is quite a bit.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting moment. I think that they're satisfying. I think that
Mm-hmm.
they're repetitive, so it's easy to follow kind of what's
Uh-huh.
happening. I think that they're interesting to see, like, what is he doing. It's a little different, so it's really the technique and like the method of doing
Mhm.
it. I think that's what's interesting and people are drawn to.
Mhm.
And then at the end you get the reveal, and and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, he's making a painting, but he's not like using a paintbrush. He's
Mhm.
just like doing these like pointillistic kind of things, and it comes all together, and it
Yeah.
creates this like pretty cool
Yeah.
image at the end.
Were there like any setbacks that you faced when you were first starting?
Yeah, so I kind of started going down the NFT rabbit
Oh
hole when
yeah,
that
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
whole
yeah,
thing was
yeah.
going on. I'm not a big technology guy. That's
Uh-huh.
kind of a little bit why too. Like I did decide to go pursue the landscape business,
Uh-huh.
because with graphic design, like I didn't want to sit behind a computer all day and
Yeah.
just look at a screen.
Mhm.
Right.
I need to be up and moving and kind of active. But I started pursuing the NFT, and I got a little kind of sidetracked and I lost a little bit of momentum with my
Mhm.
paintings. And now I'm just kind of trying to get back into it, whether I do the same kind of thing I've been doing forever. Maybe it's an opportunity to kind of mix it up and
Mhm.
do something else and kind of get playful with it. I have a whole abstract series you guys saw, painting
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Right.
And that one I haven't shared on social media at
Mm-hmm.
all. I think that if it's here and no one sees it, no one's ever going to see it. But if I
Mhm.
start sharing it, it'll get out to everybody else, and everybody will get eyes on it.
Yeah.
regarding your art, in one sentence, how would you summarize the theme of your art and what your art represents?
Um, I would say pop culture.
Pop
Mm-hmm.
culture.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of themes going on with like things that are going on in the news in the world. There's sports teams, there's actors, actresses, there's political commentary on
Mm-hmm.
it, and I think that pop art kind of it all encapsulates a lot of that.
Does what you want to express in each artwork like change? Does it depend?
Absolutely. Every painting, has to stand alone.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, especially when you're doing commission work, it's not about what you want and what you want to hang in your
Mm-hmm.
house. It's about what the client wants. And,
Right,
and
right.
you know, I'd say 80% of my work that I've done is commission work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of, trying to get into the client's head and see what it is that they want and that they're happy with it at the end.
So your art, most of it is very expressionist, and they all kind of say something. Why did you choose expressionist art over, for say, realism?
Yeah, I think that they're not realism, right? But there is hints of people in it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a little kind of bridge in there in between. I don't think it's just expressionate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the reason for the style is just, limited to by the technique a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that there's just something so strong and powerful about the colors.
Mm-hmm.
None of those colors, for the most part, are mixed. They're straight from the tube. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of when I started painting. There was a little bit of that too. I found there was a lot of time I was wasting, like washing brushes, mixing paint, and kind
Yeah.
of doing a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff. And when I had access to just the tubes, and I thought that it removed a crutch along the way. Like it
Mm-hmm.
kind of, it also added a little bit of a restriction, and it just creates something a little bit different.
I'm
Like
wondering,
even that painting back
yeah.
there, you can kind of see, even though this looks skin toned, it's sort of all different um,
Yeah, so that
colors.
one, when I was working on that one, I was really thinking about Chuck Close's portraits
Mm-hmm.
because he uses a lot of colors. And I kept them pretty CMYK, so like a printer, right? So the
Uh-huh.
Right.
concept is that when you're up close, they look like a bunch of different little
Uh-huh.
colors. And as soon as you stand away, it starts to look more, like you said, like the skin
Yeah.
tone and things like that. So I'm glad that it looks skin tone because that
Yeah,
was a little bit the
I
goal of it.
realized it was like inkjet printer colors, like the
Correct. Yeah.
yellow, the sort of turquoisey blue, and that sort of magenta color.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering how long, like specifically that painting took.
Yeah, so this painting, I usually work on multiple paintings at a time.
Okay.
This one I worked on pretty much just it, and it took me about a month. I really wanted to like test out how long it was going to take me to do it,
Uh-huh.
how long I could, how quickly I could do it.
Uh-huh.
And I probably worked 6 to 8 hours a day on it for a month,
Wow. Like
maybe a
every
month and a
day.
half, every day, Monday through Friday,
Wow.
occasionally on the weekends too. Um, and I was pretty happy with it. It's an older self portrait, so it doesn't quite look like I do now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can still, pull different features
Yeah.
and stuff.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
have a little bit of a pointy ear, and you can kind of see them on the portrait.
So, what would you say is your art project from concept to final product?
What do you mean by that question?
Like, what is your process? Like,
Oh, what is
walk
the
us.
process?
Yes.
Yeah, so the process, I sketch them out in the
Mm-hmm.
background so that I can, have some guidance. Because as soon as I start to incorporate color, you lose a lot of the reference point, kind of like a tattoo artist, how
Mm-hmm.
he does the outline and then shades in.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of do that because it's kind of a one shot go.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am messing up, then I have to go in there with a palette knife and
Yeah.
kind of scrape everything out. I have
Yeah.
Q-tips too that I use, and it gets real hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I sketch it out, and then I'll usually work on like the background colors. So I probably on her, I probably did. Actually, hers I did reverse. I did the black on her face first because I
Okay.
wanted less highlights, and then I did the face. But a lot of them, I'll do the face first, then the highlights and stuff.
Okay.
The eyes were last. You can see by how they overlap
Mm-hmm.
each
They're a
other
little
and things
taller
like that.
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, the lips as well. So I kind of prioritize like what I want in the front, what I want in the back, because
Mm-hmm.
you can always go over. It's hard to
Yeah.
pull that color from the.
How do you like stay motivated to create a piece?
You just show up every day and you keep working at it. It's very hard to stay motivated
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
The real nice ones are when you can start a painting and then you're so motivated and driven and you just kind of want to see it to completion. But I have a painting that's buried behind you guys that I've been working on for you know 3 months maybe now,
Uh-huh.
and it's like 20% of the way done, and I keep doing other things in the way because I keep procrastinating on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So they all vary. It depends on if it's a commission piece and I told the client I'd be done by a certain time, then I always make sure that it's done by that time, a little before, so it can dry and then I can package it and ship it into everything.
So a lot of artists or creative people face sort of a block, an art block.
Yeah.
How would you counter that, or how have you countered that?
Well, I'm in it right now, with my advertising, so like posting stuff on social media and things like that. I've been kind of and then a little bit of a dip.
Mm-hmm.
How am I conquering that? I'm just every day I'm down here for 2 3 hours and I keep making art. I keep making different stuff, things that sometimes an idea will come to me and I just like try to get it down on paper as much as quickly as possible, because if you don't get it down on paper then you'll lose it.
Yeah.
And I just try to stay motivated because like this is what I want to do. So if I don't do it, it's not going to get done.
Right.
And I think that through painting, it can open up a lot of doors.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. What was it like using social media to post your artwork?
so it's so funny because on TikTok it was easy,
Yeah.
because no one knew me.
Mm-hmm.
No one followed me that I knew. No one knew that I was posting. It was just something I was doing by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think too much about it. Now, on Instagram and things like that, I'm a little bit slower. I'm a little bit more cautious with it. Like friends and family that follow me and things like that. Like I don't want them seeing, too many videos or repetitive videos, and it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to overcome that now. I've been, doing some journaling and just trying to like get out and exercise and just kind of try to stay ahead of the mental health.
Yeah.
The mental health
Did you
aspects.
like expect anything when you first started posting?
No, I've always, wanted to have something come of something, right? That you work hard, you want recognition for what you do. But when I started posting, I just started posting by myself. It's just something that I started doing for me. Like I was just not in a super, super happy place. So I started painting for myself because like that usually calms me down. And then I haven't stopped since. And
Yeah.
it's been 5 years now. Yeah.
How did you feel when you said like you woke up and you had 7,000 new followers? How did that feel?
Oh, it felt crazy. You were excited, you were happy, you were also like under pressure because it's like, oh my God, like it's happening. How do I like run with this? And then you have like a million different ideas. You're like, oh, well, now I have to do merch, I have to do prints, I have to like do this, I have to do that. And sometimes, I'm not diagnosed, but I think a little ADD, and you can get like overwhelmed with stuff, and you can get like paralysis by analysis, right? So you're just yeah, so it's like it's just too much sometimes, but I just kind of put that outside and I kept painting and just kind of went with it.
So at the time, what pushed you towards art, and now what pushes you towards your art?
Yeah, at the time, um, I just needed to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was little, I knew how to draw and paint and things like that. So I felt like it seems silly not to pursue it. Not everybody knows how to draw and paint.
Yes.
And like,
Yeah.
Definitely a talent.
yeah, it's a talent. And there's also a business aspect of it, right? So like, I'm pretty left, right brained. And I think that, the business aspect, like I can get behind it. So making art is fun and it's satisfying, but now it's a business. So like now I stay motivated by thinking like, how do I take this thing that I was doing that was happening, that was fun, but like, how do I make it more legit now? Like, how do I get brand recognition? How do I get people behind me, recognition from from magazines or other Instagram accounts, or like I'm just trying to find that path. But now I see the path a little bit more business as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what's shifted the
Yeah.
most.
Did that experience from landscaping help you in any way when it came to your business when you sold your art and sort of worked on your artwork?
Yeah, I think so because landscaping, like you go to do someone's yard and it can be a couple $1,000
Mm-hmm.
just to like clean up the leaves or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, mulch. So I think that when I started painting, I was able to price my stuff a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It wasn't like I wasn't selling paintings for $80.
Yeah.
Right.
I was selling paintings for a few $100s and
Mm-hmm.
in the thousands.
Yeah.
So I think that, just being more mature, like a lot of mistakes that I made when I was landscaping, I think that I'm making them differently now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What do you do with all your paintings after social media? Do you keep most of them?
Yeah, so probably about 80 of them sold. So they're hanging up in someone's house, and they're enjoy it every day when they
Yeah.
get to walk past it. Um, and then the ones that don't sell, I have them here stored. I take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to have some that don't sell
Yeah.
because then you can show people what you do. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just look at these pictures and videos and stuff
Yeah.
on my phone. You can actually be like, come look at it, because I think that they look very different in life than they do on a little screen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding social media usage, how would you summarize your experience as an artist using social media?
Yeah, social media is interesting. um, it opens up a lot of doors,
Hmm.
but you have to be consistent with it.
Mm-hmm.
It really requires that consistency. Like you need to be on, people need to see you, they need to get to know you, they need to connect with you. It really forces you to, maybe be a little bit more personable.
Oh, sorry. Here, I'll pick this up. Thank you.
I was so I looked onto your TikTok and the last post was I think 2023.
Yeah.
What are you focusing more on now?
Yeah. So 2023, the last post I think was the Handmaid's Tale posts.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And that was a commission for Hulu.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
um,
wow.
that I did with them. Yeah,
Ooh.
so they hired me to make a painting. So they really hired me to make a video,
Mm-hmm.
and it was advertising The Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
After that, what happened was just a lot of personal things in my life.
Mhm.
I got married.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a house. Yeah, I had left the landscape business when I started doing the art.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm back in, more like kind of consulting, helping out,
Mm-hmm.
looking at jobs, designing projects and things like that, kind of running jobs. So trying to figure out both and kind of balance it. So it's just been, life's kind of gotten ahead of me, but I haven't stopped painting.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't been posting.
Okay.
How has working with Hulu differed from your normal clientele?
There's a lot of like checks along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You come up with a concept, and you need to send it to them. Then you're usually working with a third company,
Mm-hmm.
so then they send it to Hulu, and then Hulu
Okay.
sends it. So it just takes a long time because
Right.
there's a lot of back and forth.
Like, how much longer do you think doing a painting for Hulu is compared to, your
It's
normal client?
Yeah, so it's not the painting itself that takes longer. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the process with it. Because with the
Yeah.
client, sometimes they have a vision and they're like, "This is kind of what I want," and
Uh-huh.
like you do what you do.
Yeah.
But with a company like that, when you're working with brands, there's a lot of requirements that they have.
Right.
So you have to kind of make sure that you're meeting their needs.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like any plans for your next post or what you think you'll post next?
That's so since it's been a long time, I've
Mm-hmm.
been kind of going back and forth on like how do I kind of get back into
Yeah.
it. I think that on my Instagram, the stuff that's on there is
Mm-hmm.
not accurate, in terms, it's not all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that my first step is just going to be that kind of, taking Instagram, at least the picture kind of grid format of it, and kind of cleaning that up, and like uploading all of them and just getting everything really up to date,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can see the full span of what I have done in the past. and then just kind of play around with reels. My goal is to, getting into more videos and things like that,
Uh-huh.
and then uploading on like YouTube and kind of moving that direction, like cleaning up all of it, the presentation, making sure the website's up and
Hmm.
And running.
legitimate and everything.
Yeah.
So, I have a few questions about landscaping.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
inspired the start of it, or yeah.
Yeah, so we started landscaping. So when we moved here in 1999,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
my dad worked for a company and he'd been with that company for 15 plus years at that point. And we had a very close friend of ours at the time who had a painting company. And, we were talking one day and he was like, how come my dad's name is Eddie? He's like,
Mhm.
Eddie, why don't you like do landscaping for yourself? And my dad's like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if my English is good enough
Mhm.
and things like that. So I turned to him and I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, I'll do it with you.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
do it together and we make it work. And I always kind of knew going into it that it was what I was going to be doing, but not necessarily forever.
Mhm.
Just something that I was doing and helping, and we were, establishing it and kind of getting it running, and
Mhm.
um, it's just something for my family. They moved here and they kind of sacrificed a little bit of their life, so I, wanted to give back.
I saw, I believe, on the Boston Journal that you did a sort of interview with them,
Hmm.
and you said you started sort of getting into landscaping when you were 10. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so I would help my dad in the summers.
Mhm.
Okay.
When he was working for that other company he worked for, I would show up and I would get $20 a day and I'd just be there outside and like pick weeds and like
Uh-huh.
usually pick the weeds between the pavers and things like that. Like, jobs that are easy, anybody can kind of
Mhm.
do. And then every year I got a little bit more and more and more. And then when I was 18, I started working at a restaurant and then I went to college and then started landscaping again.
Mhm.
For the company of landscaping, what were the first few steps to your success, to the
Yeah.
success?
So we had a little bit of a different approach when we started. We didn't start from zero.
Uh-huh.
We started because my dad met a guy who his name was Billy,
Mhm.
and he was an older gentleman who's getting closer to retirement, and he wanted to sell the business.
Mhm.
And he'd been landscaping for 30, 40, 50 years, however long.
Mhm.
And he had a list of clients that had been with him for a long time. And we bought his equipment and we
Mhm.
Mhm.
bought his list of clients, and he had about 20 clients, so it wasn't anything big. It was just something that one person could run. And because I went to Messar, I had some graphic design
Mhm.
experience. That's how I got into like the marketing and kind of growing the business. So then that's what I focused on, was like growing the business, and kind of advertising it, showing what we do, and kind of like taking it to the next step.
Mhm.
And would you say that that connection impacted how the business ran long term or just momentarily in the beginning?
Um, so my dad worked with him for Billy. He worked with him for a year, so
Okay.
it was a smooth, easy transition. I think that starting with something that's already kind of going um, feels a little bit more stable. But I think it's all hard at the end of the day. I think if you do good work, people recognize it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And now the biggest complaint for landscaping that we hear is that, companies don't answer their phones or call
Mhm.
back.
Mhm.
And that's something that we do.
Yeah.
We have an answering service when we can't pick up, and they give us messages, and we
Mhm.
respond right away. We try to get their answers and it's scheduled and everything.
Do
Mhm.
you think there was a connection like that for you in artwork?
Um, I think that
Or do you think you would it was more independent for you?
I think it's definitely more independent, right? Because when I started it, I was just on my own, and I have been on my own. And I think that in order to grow a brand, you really need to think about it like a business. And in order
Mhm.
for that brand to grow, the business needs to grow. So I think a little bit of, why I haven't posted in 2 years is a little bit because of that too.
Okay.
I have a lot of content on my phone and on cameras and
Uh-huh.
stuff, and I don't want to just use them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know that when I start using them, I want to use them and make more, so I'm
Mhm.
consistent with it. So I know that the stuff I have will buy me some time to make new content.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's definitely different when you're by yourself and when you have support, but when you have support, it's also tough because sometimes you do things differently.
Mm-hmm. So you said that you have a lot of content. Would you say you're being more strategic with it?
I'm
Or
trying to be, yeah. I'm trying not to just like put it all out and
yeah.
whatever happens with it happens.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to, because when I was first starting and it started to get viral,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that it's a little bit of a snowball, right?
Yeah.
If you put a little tiny snowball at the top of the hill, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to roll down, and
Yeah.
as it rolls down, it's going to pick up more snow
Yeah.
along the
Yeah.
way. Because you'll find me because of one video, but then you'll go to my page, and then there's a
More.
bunch of other
Yeah.
videos. So now, the more content you have, the better it is. And if you're, following me now, you want to follow me because I'm posting cool things. But if I'm not posting it, then you're not going to
Yeah.
follow. So it's
Yeah.
kind of this back and forth.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite painting here, or was there like a favorite painting for you if it's sold?
Yeah. All the paintings that there's all the paintings I do, I enjoy and I like. There's a few though that kind of happen in that moment where you're just like, an idea comes to you, and
Mm-hmm.
those are always fun. But I don't have any with me because the ones that are that moment of idea are usually like
Sold.
before I even post it, they're sold.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's also hard to like accumulate things. It's a good problem to have. I'm not complaining, but it's hard to accumulate paintings sometimes to show people and to make a show for,
Yeah.
to show in a showing, because if they're good, they sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is an aspiration you have for yourself or your art?
An aspiration that I have for myself is just to calm down a little bit more and enjoy, the journey that life is,
Mm-hmm.
the ups and the downs and everything. To not get like so stressed every day over nothing.
Yeah.
What was the second part of the question?
And an aspiration you want for your art.
Yeah, and an aspiration for my art would be to open up doors for traveling.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
always wanted to travel, and it's always been a bucket list of mine. And I do some traveling, a good amount, but I want to see like more of this world. Like
Yeah.
there's just so
Yeah.
much out there, and there's so many cool different places and different cultures. And I'm because I'm an immigrant, sometimes feel like I don't necessarily belong here,
Oh.
because like with around, Americans, like I'm not American enough.
Yeah.
I don't play football or watch football or like follow sports that much. And then when I'm in Brazil, I'm not Brazilian enough. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like I've kind of had this like thing where
Between.
like you're not really here nor there, and you
You're
just
just
kind
kind
of
of
float.
between.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. And I think because I'm so comfortable in that
Mm-hmm.
space, it would be really cool to like go see India, like somewhere that's like kind of remote, or somewhere in Africa, a village in Africa, or down
Mm-hmm.
in the Amazon, and like go to Patagonia, like just travel. And I think like you can paint in different areas too.
Yeah.
That would be cool to do some outdoor painting, and maybe recording of journeys. And I don't know what's in the future, but I definitely want to pursue it. I want to grow the brand.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share, my art with people, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Like letting the world inspire what you create.
Yeah, and it's like, you see something and it's a little different. Maybe someone has a different take on it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that was really cool that I didn't kind of think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people were sending me videos of them making paintings in the same way that I make paintings.
Wow.
So it's like I was inspiring people to create art, which
Uh-huh.
is in a
Yeah.
different way, to have
Yeah.
fun, to kind of
Yeah.
break out of the mold a little bit. And that was really cool to see and inspiring.
How did that feel to inspire somebody else to sort of take on your style?
It's
And
kind of a mind trip, because at first you're like, what are they doing? Like, but then you're like, wow, like that's so cool. Someone's like thinks that I'm good enough
Yeah.
for them to
yeah.
copy. Like that's really cool.
So, what are your next steps to achieve your goals and travel and
My
success?
next steps is going to be to kind of dive into social media, and really focus on it and kind of see what happens with it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep doing what I'm doing, and mix it up, and try to have fun as much as possible along the way,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
just smile and laugh, and meet new cool people. I
Mm-hmm.
would have never met you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so if 7-year-old Doug that were making those little drawings back at home and selling them was watching right now, what is a piece of advice you would tell him?
Piece of advice I tell 7-year-old Doug. Um, it's gonna be okay, dude. It'll all be okay. Just relax, have fun, enjoy it. It's a long life.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't all need to happen right now.
Mhm.
It can just happen when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. After all your experiences, what do you think is the secret to success that you would want to share with everyone?
Find something that you obsess about and just kind of stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Learn as much as you can about that subject if it's really interesting to you. If you love to interview people, watch interviews, research, older videos and how people used to do interviews back in the day. Because it just could also like inspire you an idea on how
Yeah.
you do yours.
Mhm.
Maybe, they used to do something a certain way back in the day and it's kind of gotten lost, but like it's really interesting and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God. I think just studying your craft, like knowing the people that came before you and, and trying to, at least for me, like trying to get ahead or like try to do something that's a little different and, makes you like scratch your head about like, when I go to museums, I'm always like, I'm the guy that's standing like 6 inches away from the painting and I'm just looking at it. I'm like, how did he do that? Or they did that, like, what's the process? What's the tools? What's the technique? And I think that's what I enjoy about what I do is because it's different and you don't know how it's done and you're kind of questioning and curious about it.
Creating your own space for growth and where you want to go. So I have one last question.
Yeah.
When you think about sort of all the information, all the knowledge you've acquired, this could be like a motto, a quote. What is the most important, most impactful piece of information you have on you?
On me.
Yes, that you kind of hold yourself to.
That's a tough one. I would say just trust in yourself.
Trust in yourself.
Yeah, and trust that like people will show up when it's time for them to show up.
Yeah.
Um, the universe kind of works in a funny way, and the synchronicity of it all is really interesting. If you put your mind to it, I think you can really get it done. I broke my foot 3 months ago, and I didn't think it'd ever heal, and it's starting to heal. So, we'll all make it.
Yeah. Could we see some of
Can
your
we walk
art?
around and sort
Yeah,
of?
absolutely.
That is so realistic.
Yeah, so this is the second cat portrait that I did for my wife, girlfriend at the time. This was not the Christmas gift one. This was the 2020 one, right before COVID. So I started, this is kind of what I've always done, was more like realism. I never found myself to be creative, coming up with like different characters and cartoons and things like that. Like I kind of struggled, but if I took a photo, I did pretty good at like replicating it. So I was kind of stuck with more realism. And then this one, the Jimi Hendrix was one of the first ones that I was doing that was kind of starting to transition into the realism and textured kind of stuff, mixing it up a little bit more. The hair is what happened with the hair was I was making this painting and I messed it up. And I took a palette knife and I scraped it all off.
Wow.
And I put it on the hair. And that's kind of how it started. And then, the color came after and kind of playing around with it and getting the shapes and stuff. But it became a place to kind of like put excess paint a little bit.
It works really nice because it kind of looks like the texture of an afro.
Yeah, thanks. And then, the two colors, a little bit of duality kind of balancing, kind of different personalities of, his true self and maybe an artistic self or I don't know.
Were you like planning to create all this texture or was it originally going to be like more flat?
It was all going to be flat and then I just kind of did it and kind of went with it and everybody seems, everybody's drawn to it. It's one of the pieces that everybody kind of talks about.
I love the
They're
blend
really
between
drawn
like the
to
sort
it.
of flat realisticness and then like the more abstract and textured hair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
thank you. And then I have
Can we look at the more political commentary stuff?
yeah, so I have Vladimir Zelensky.
Uh-huh.
The reason why I painted him was because when the war started to happen, I couldn't remember his name.
Oh.
I'm horrible with names sometimes,
Okay.
and I really thought that he was someone who was important in history, and I should remember his name. That's actually why I painted him, because I just wanted to remember his name. And then
That's
once you
really
get into
cool.
some of the political commentary stuff,
Uh-huh. There was, I believe.
so there's this one,
Oh, that's
this
election.
one, yeah, and this one.
Okay.
Yes. Is that Goofy? That's Goofy.
Yeah, Goofy.
Yep.
With the MAGA beanie.
Yeah, so when Trump got elected, he was like on the news all the time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he was definitely a polarizing figure at the time,
Mhm.
and well, he still is. And I just remember everybody was like making fun of everything he did ever, and I just thought that it was kind of funny, like a goofy
Yeah.
Trump kind of thing. So
Like a play on words.
yeah, a little play on words. And then when the election came up, you know, Biden, Trump, and Kanye, it's like we didn't really have a lot to pick from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then when Biden got elected, one fish, two fish, mad fish, Trump, and then new fish, Kamala and Biden.
Can we zoom in on the fishes down there? Look at that.
When was this painted?
21.
21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A year later, a year after the election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the further down we go, we start seeing more kind of abstract stuff. Some of this abstract was done in the beginning. As you can see, it's more flat 2D, not as much. This is some new things I'm working on.
Okay.
Get some, these are all yard signs from my wedding. Get some abstracts that I started to play around with. I tend to kind of go back and forth. Like I got frustrated sometimes with doing stuff that's like very meticulous.
Yeah.
And you just kind of want to like be expressionate and just like you have a feeling or a mood or something that you're trying to get out. And I never did abstract, and I'm horrible with colors, which is actually really funny because everything I do is so colorful. But I was always kind of a little like scared of color. You asked me what my favorite color was, like none of them. They're all like a little scary.
Yeah.
How was this one made?
Yeah.
This one was done by just completely experimenting and playing around, playing with different textures and different materials. There's some plastic bags in here that I kind of glued down with some paint and stuff, and it kind of, you know, just kind of trying to balance in here too. There's like a little shine. You can see the little plastic. There's some paper towels too. I thought that was interesting with like some of the horizontal streaks and things like that. But I was just trying to play around, really put it all out on canvas and just see what we get.
You said you were bad with color, but I feel like they're so cohesive, even though they're like the colors are so in so much contrast. How was there a process to that, or
The
was
process,
that just your mood?
yeah, it's all like I try to, especially these abstract ones, like they were kind of all intuitive. Just playing around with it and just trying to balance. I always describe to people like when they're asking like, oh, how do you do like landscape design and you went to school for graphic design? I'm like, art is art. It's all line, weight, shape, form, color. So if it feels balanced and cohesive, I think that it feels right. If it feels right, then I'm kind of done with it. Sometimes like some paintings that are pretty straightforward, like the one from The Handmaid's Tale, you know when that's done, right? It's done when it's all kind of completed. Something that's abstract and more intuitive, you kind of got to keep going until like it just there's a moment in time where it's done and you have to stop. And if you keep going, you can fix it. It'll be a completely different painting, but
Yeah.
you can create something new. But knowing when to stop, I think, is the hardest part about abstract painting because it can get too muddied and too much.
Yeah.
You talked about earlier starting a new dot series. Could we see some of that? The circles?
Yeah. So it started out with this one. I was reading this book about math,
Oh.
and it was kind of this deconstructing numbers.
Mhm.
And the first number was 0, which was 1. And I started this painting. I didn't finish it because I ran out of red paint.
Oh.
But then one day I was kind of just thinking, just like floating around, and I started doing these like orbs. So they're kind of dots, circles. Um, and from one you get 2. And, I don't really know the direction that I'm going with these yet, but I can see a cool series like where you walk in and there's like just a room full of like circles everywhere with like different like colors. But then also I want to play around with some texture,
Okay.
kind of them coming together. There's there's different. I haven't really fleshed it out yet completely, the idea. But it's just like coming together. Also having a kid in July, a baby.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Thank you. So the first one out of these dot series was actually this one. And as soon as I saw it, I just thought of my wife and like a son and like a little baby. And the little textures kind of like taking, it's still a circle, it's still related, right? But it just feels like something else. And I think there's a lot of cool little personalities that can come with it. I started experimenting with some faces and stuff. You can't really see it, but if you get close, and shadows, so like they look like spheres, but like this could be the shadow, it could also be like someone's shoulder.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so it's like just kind of playing around with the dots, with the circles. I'm not really sure where I'm going with it yet, but it's in the works.
Okay.
Is there a favorite painting in here that you currently have?
Yeah, so I would say June from Handmaid's Tale
Okay.
is probably one of the paintings that I have right now that I keep looking at all the time. And I swear it's because she follows me everywhere I go.
Oh no.
She always looks like she's looking at me and she's mad. And I just always keep kind of looking back to it. And then I put this frame on it too, and I thought it was interesting just to see it like framed, and I thought it looked kind of cool.
It matches the painting's like aesthetic very well.
Style.
Yeah, the
more true, like
morbid kind
yeah,
of.
yeah.
Yeah, and then these are some of the abstract that I've been playing with that I haven't posted yet. Um, I have a few of them sold. This one was upstairs.
Yeah, I saw something very similar.
Yeah. And it still like has all the dots in it. So I think that, the direction that I'm going to be going in is still the dots, but like transitioning and in between, maybe I get into some landscapes or I'm not really sure exactly where yet.
I think to me it almost looks like some dystopian forest or sort of field of flowers. Do you have any meaning behind this specific painting?
So this one actually started the whole abstract series. I wasn't sure what to do, so I was just kind of like playing around in the studio. I had ran out of the paint I was using it. The manufacturer changed the tube. So actually that's a little bit why too, like the style started changing, is because the type of paint changed. They became more liquidy and it wasn't holding the texture. That's why you get a lot of these flats too, because I was dropping them from heights, 3-4 feet, and you kind of like splat out. But this was all done wet on wet, so it's kind of cool that like they didn't blend too much because it's just all wet on wet.
Because sorry, but if it's like wet on wet, would it press the other paint down, like the below paint?
So, I mean, as you're working on it, it'll create like a little cover that dries. So no, it doesn't always push, but like these drops, if you look at them, they're all pushed. Like the paint behind it and stuff, like it just kind of moved. So it was actually really hard to control.
Okay.
So I have like a lot of these little ones that I was playing around with, and you can see like they're not as defined.
Yeah.
The colors also don't match or balance necessarily. Like it doesn't feel complete. Um, but you know, and then it starts to get a little dense and heavy. So it's just kind of hard trying to find that balance and
Right.
like when to stop, when not to stop. You know, like I got it to this point now where I can't just stop. Like where do I add that it's gonna create contrast and feel balanced, but it's not gonna add too much, you know. And it could be, you know, maybe these are like a field and they're
Yeah,
kind of
I
some
see that.
flowers and stuff like that with like some rocks and a water
Yeah.
streak. Um,
Oh, this one's cool.
Wow. This has a lot of colors. I'm just wondering, like, how much would it cost to make one?
to make one,
Yeah.
this would probably sell for about $2,500.
Okay.
Um, cost wise, material alone, probably maybe $200-300.
Okay.
And then just time,
Yeah.
a lot of
How
time
much time
kind of
did it
going into
take?
it. The abstract ones are hard to, you know, track the time because I was working on a lot of them at the same time.
Okay.
But all of the abstract stuff that kind of looks like this, I did over a span of 3 months.
Okay.
Um, so just working on multiple at the same time. And some of them are done all in one sitting, and some of them are done in multiple sittings. I used to have a tarp, not a tarp, a canvas down here, and I would kind of lay them out and just kind of like walk through and play around with them all.
Do you ever want to have your own sort of gallery space one day and just kind of let people come in and sort of just look at all your different artworks?
Yeah, I would love to. I think that's, you know, the end goal, right? Is to, you know, be recognized for the stuff that you do, have a space that you can show your work, you know, have it in different locations too. I think would be cool just to be able to share and kind of have people from different parts to see it too. I think seeing art in life, real life, is very different from just seeing it on your phone.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
Have you like entered any art competitions before?
just a couple, like one or two online art competitions where I've submitted some of the portrait stuff that I've done. I've never got anything back, but I think those, I don't know how those are like in terms of, I mean, I think it's good to do stuff, right? Because you start to build a resume. But I think that will happen when it's time to happen. Yeah. But I've been looking at some fairs. I, you know, maybe get down to like Florida, Miami, some point, or you know, New York or LA or whatever, even Boston, and just kind of getting it out to people. I think anything and all of it works. I think that's right. Just kind of doing it and committing to it and kind of going from all different angles and trying to just work hard at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to see more?
I actually wanted to talk about the self-portrait.
Yeah,
if
we
that's
can.
okay. I want to talk about this painting and specifically how like everything looks like it's like made by like a digital inkjet sort of printer. I think the colors look really cool because like from close up here I could actually see the different colors, but when I was all the way over there I thought it was just sort of like
Blended.
beige or like some sort of brown color.
Yeah. So I wanted to make a self-portrait. I wanted to, the reason for the self-portrait is because I wanted to challenge myself. Like I was doing these dots and I was doing like a, you know, a little Mickey Mouse character or, you know, an anime character, and those are pretty straightforward. So I wanted to do something that was harder, more challenging, and to see like, does it carry through? Like, even though they're dots, like, does it still work?
Yeah.
So again, because I was taking stuff directly from the tube and I was using, you know, paint straight from the tube, I wasn't trying to mix anything. So I was thinking like, how does printers work? Because they also don't mix colors. And once you start looking down at like the breakdown of like CMYK, And I've done some silk screening stuff before, so like that's
Mhm.
kind of where a little bit of that background knowledge came from. But what I did is I had the portrait, took it into Photoshop, and then I separated out the different colors, um, created the different circles, and just to kind of get a different gradient and
Mhm.
shading, just for guidance. And I had 4 or 5 different solid colors printed,
Mhm.
and I was kind of using them. So whenever there was like it was densely pink,
Mhm.
I knew that I had to do more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Densely pink, and kind of separating it that way. Um, and just kind of stepping back and forth. Like towards the end, I was getting real frustrating because it's like I'd come in here and I'd work on like the white for the
Mhm.
highlights,
Mhm.
and I'd step back and it would look exactly the same. And I'd be like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like I just painted so much of it, and like I'm going to cover the whole thing white if I
Mhm.
don't stop.
Mhm.
Um, so there was a lot of up close work and like going back and like kind of stepping away and things like that.
Mhm.
These were all done in my apartment. At the
Oh,
time, I
okay.
lived in a 400 square foot apartment, like
Mhm.
bedroom, kitchen, living room, tiny little thing. And I'm very clean and
Mhm.
like neat with how I do my stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I was able to just kind of paint in my living room and like
Wow.
not make a mess and like cleaned up and
That's a
stuff.
task.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that was probably started with um, probably the midtones, more of the
Okay.
yellows and stuff like
Okay.
that, and some areas. I mean, I probably did all of them, the highlights too, but I did the base and then focused on the highlights more
Mhm.
after, just to
Mhm.
kind of bring out the contrasts. The eyes are usually
Mhm.
like the last things I
Yeah.
do
Okay.
because it's fun to see a painting that like doesn't really have eyes, and then you
Yeah.
do the eyes, and as soon as like you nail it, it just comes to life.
You.
It's I find that really that's probably one of my favorite parts about doing portraits
Mhm.
is like that last touch. Like even the Betty White one, like if it wasn't for the white dots on her eyes,
Uh-huh.
it looks like a different image. And then as soon as you put the little white dots, you see it come to
Yeah.
life, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. Like it's done.
Yeah. There-
Something cool I realized is that in the pupils of the eyes, I don't think there's white, is there?
Yeah, there's white, but there are other colors
Like
too.
the
So,
black part of the
oh, the black
eyeballs.
part?
Yeah.
No,
It
just
looks so
background.
shiny.
Mhm.
Yeah, just the background. White, I let the canvas pop through.
Mhm.
I wasn't so worried about making sure everything was covered and overlapping.
Mhm.
But yeah, the reflections on that is not white; they're blue and yellow.
Is there underpainting to that?
Everything has a pencil under drawing to it.
Oh, so that's really hard. You have to like kind of go as you go with the dots.
Yeah, so exactly right. Like they're literally tiny. They're half an inch in
Mhm.
diameter, and
Yeah.
it's just one by one. So as soon as you start doing it, eventually you get lost because
Yeah.
there's like a
Yeah.
bunch of lines everywhere, and there's like a bunch of colors that don't make sense, and like there's like blue, and you're trying to get like skin tone color, and you're like blue doesn't make skin,
Mhm.
and you're trying to balance it all.
Yeah.
But it came together.
So like it's pretty hard to accurately depict yourself. Was that like a challenge for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because you like, especially at this scale, like who
Yeah.
wants to hang this at their house, like a painting of me? Like why should I make, who am I to make a portrait of
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
this big? um
I think it looks like very accurately. I was able to walk in and feel like
Yeah.
that's definitely you.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know, sometimes I feel like maybe it's the ego in me, but like sometimes I feel like I see a lot of myself in a lot of them, like
Mhm.
weirdly in different ways.
Mhm.
um and also you start to like do research on the people, which I
Yeah.
find is
Mhm.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Like even when I was doing the Betty White portrait, like I found myself wanting to like learn more about her and
Yeah.
like the philanthropy work and stuff that she did. How like she's just active for
Mhm.
forever, and you see someone older and you don't always think like they were young once and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
live the full life, and yeah, I didn't know a lot about her before,
Mhm.
and she had passed away, and I did the portrait of her, and I'm really happy with this one. I actually It's probably up there in one of my favorite ones, not because it's necessarily the harder ones to do, but this was a little bit like Andy Warhol too, inspired, like the colors and like the way it is, his silkscreen images.
So you
Um,
would say this one's more about the process of like learning about her and then painting her.
yeah, I think it was also trying to capture a viral moment, right?
Okay.
Like trying to do something. I don't know. I used to do a lot of the anime cartoon stuff,
Yeah.
and I
Mhm.
started getting more into portraits because I wanted to like show that I can do real art,
Yeah.
especially because of the dots. Like there was a lot of comments, and people would write. Not that it mattered, but you
Mhm.
read them and you think about it. And I remember one that was like, "Oh, he's just doing this because it's like a hack. Like
Uh-huh.
it just
That's
catches your attention, but like he could just be painting it like it shouldn't, like
yeah.
it's not." Good, or like it's just he's only going viral because it's a hack. So I want to do the portraits because it's like no, it's a style, like the Mickey Mouse and that they all look very different, but
Yeah.
they all balance and feel like they belong in the
In the same
same
collection.
Yeah.
collection. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't think it was easy because drawing on a smaller scale is typically easier, but all your paintings are huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially with like the dots and stuff, I don't think I don't think I could ever paint something like this. I would argue. Is realism easier for you?
It's all different.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all different. Like, when you're painting, it's you start out and then you're happy and you're excited, and then
Mhm.
you reach a point probably about like 60% of the way
Mhm.
that you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. It's
Yeah.
complete garbage.
Felt that.
Like, what am I doing? Like, I should just start over. Like,
Mhm.
I should just go back to my day job. Like, I shouldn't. And then once you pass that like 85, 90, 95 mark, you're like,
Mhm.
okay, like, I'm so happy I did it. And then you're like, guys, look, I did it and it looks
Yeah.
good. And I,
Yeah.
want to show it to the world.
Sort of like there's always that middle ugly stage where it doesn't
Yeah.
look quite right.
Yeah. And that's when you want to give up. And that's when you just got to double down and be like, I started it, so I'm going to finish it.
Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. I've always tried to work on one or two, maybe three at the same time, but not more.
Okay.
Some artists work on 10, 15 at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
time.
It's like
Wow.
wow.
And I find that I just have a lot of unfinished work.
Yeah.
So if I keep it smaller, I tend to finish them. And I also like to have two or three going on
Mhm.
because if there's a painting about halfway through,
Mhm.
sometimes you're stuck and you don't know what to do.
Can work on
Go
it.
finish that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. It's also just kind of
Buys you
keep
time.
yourself interested, being like,
Mhm.
if I'm bored with this one for now, I'll just move on to the next one.
Keep
Yeah.
going, keep
Yeah.
moving, keeps the wheel spinning.
Mhm. Well, it
Thank
was
you.
wonderful
Yeah.
talking
Thank you
Perfect.
so
to you.
much.
Thank you guys so
We learned
much.
so much about art. It's like
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you for your time.
I hope I was able to answer the questions.
Yeah. No,
No,
you
you
answered
good
them
way.
answered them
perfectly.
really well.
Yeah.
Thank you
And I
guys.
liked how you use like your language in a very relaxed way,
Yeah.
Perfect.
There's like no stress, and it felt very relaxed.
but
So.
also very informational and
Yeah.
not like.
Very nice to
It
meet
was
you.
great meeting you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.